Brad, John, Davis, I need to ask you some stuff, and I'm glad we had the opportunity to chat.
Well, I'm glad to be here, being from the same local area kind of thing.
Very, 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 very welcome. I want to say that just from the start, I want to make sure you feel very safe and very welcome and very encouraged to be who you are, all the way you, and never anybody you aren't.
Well, if I was somebody else, I wouldn't be me, right?
Absolutely. Everybody else is taken, bro. It's all.
Mm-hmm. And there's too much of me to spread around.
So I'm intrigued with the fact that you've been guests on so many podcasts lately, and what's kind of been the motivation for you to be on to be guests on so many people's podcasts?
Well, COVID-19 hit, and for me, that was I have a job where I'm a keynote speaker, and that means I go into small rooms with large numbers of people without masks. And that industry went away. And so it's like, well, when stuff like that happens, you got to figure out what you're going to do. So for me, it was like, well, let's figure out how to market. So I put myself out as a podcast guest, and I had no idea people were looking for a comedy sword fighting stuntman, to be on their podcast. So I was like, sure. So next thing you know,
you are the only one of the people who does all of those things.
I've done all that and more.
There's tons of people who do those things. And just those things, and maybe those things mixed with other things, but not those things combined.
That's very true, very, very true. And I've done it all over the world. And then I'm one of the guys who wore tights on the front lines of both Iraq and Afghanistan, held a sword in his hand while wearing tights.
What was the point of the tights? I mean, I'm not shaming tights. I love tights. I wear tights all the time. No, I wear tights all the time, dude. I get my custom-made tights. I did
a comedy sword fighting show, man. I did a comedy sword fighting show called Hack and Slash. It went all over the world. I started doing Renaissance festivals first. Did a lot of Renaissance festivals all over the country, and then the Pentagon stopped by one of my shows and said, "Hey, why don't you guys do USO tours?" So we started doing USO tours. So we grabbed a couple other comedians and we took them out to the front lines, and but we still stayed in our Renaissance clothing, so that when these soldiers are out there in the field, helicopter lands and these four guys get out dressed in goofy clothes, right? It's something to break up the monotony of being in a war zone. And then we go out there and we did bullwhips and whips and swords and beds of nails and all kinds of crazy comedy. And that's why I was wearing tights on the front lines of Iraq. Well, my biggest fear there was not the guns or the bombs. It was the being caught in a Iraqi village wearing tights.
Yeah, I mean, wearing tights can be scary at first. I mean, you get used to it. I was scared to wear tights at first. I started wearing tights in like the early 2000s. So,
and why were you wearing tights?
I'm a pro wrestler, man.
There you go. There you go.
It's part of the job. You just wear tights, and my part of wearing tights is like I have to make sure I'm so proud of these tights. Like these are custom made so that no one else is going to be wearing the tights that I'm wearing. So I can't go on the show and be like, oh, some jamoke had the same tights as you.
Oh, right.
Like, no, he didn't, because I paid top dollar for my tights and I got them made by somebody who's a pro. So
I actually made all mine.
Really?
I was like, I didn't want to spend the money. so I did it myself.
What year was that?
Oh, I did Renaissance festivals from my 20s till I did that show for 21 years.
Wow.
And when I went to Iraq and Afghanistan, we went from 2001 to 2006. So we were there at the beginning and way up through a lot of the taking of the countries.
Wow.
So we saw some crazy stuff. We saw some moments where we had an RPG shot at our helicopter. We had some bombs blow up around us, and so one night I was sleeping in what they called a can. Basically, it was like a shipping container been turned into a bedroom, and I could hear the bullets hitting the wall right outside. There's like a wall right next to I could hear bullets hitting the wall.
Wow.
Yeah, it was an interesting trip. Interesting trips, many of them. There's 6 of them.
I have a whole lot of respect for the people who voluntarily decide that that's the career choice that they want to go for.
And
So
think about what they volunteered for. They volunteered to go anywhere in the world
right,
to defend our freedom, no matter what that was. Whether you agree with the wars or not,
right,
those people volunteered to go anywhere and defend us. So
right.
you got that's the sole reason why I did those tours, is because those guys needed to have someone come over there and give back to them for their diligence and their bravery, you know?
Yeah, it's an escape for all the it's an escape for just minutes at a time. If that's what it is, it's just minutes, but it's like the duty that you've signed up for is so respectable. I mean, even if you don't agree with why you're there, the fact that even makes me respect you even more. If you're still sacrificing your entire life back at home,
Right.
to
And it's funny. I had a soldier come up to me. I was in Ramadi, Iraq. I had just finished doing a show, and he walked up to me. He says, Mr. Davis, he says, this morning I was in a firefight, and this afternoon for 2 hours I was able to forget all about that. I want to thank you for coming. And
yeah,
I was like, I realized I'm the pressure relief valve.
yeah,
We land and we make them laugh for 2 hours. It gives them a chance to. And one of the soldiers told me, I said, what's it like over here? He said that Iraq is like the movie Groundhog's Day. Only imagine Groundhog's Day, but every day somebody wants to kill you. It's like.
so. What is your relationship like with stand-up comedy, dude? Like, when I know you said you did comedy for a while, so I kind of wanted to see
most of my career was in comedy. My comedy career is more in improvisational and situational comedy.
Mm-hmm.
So we would do almost like improvisational skits. So stand up is cutthroat. Stand up is like one of the most how do I say it, competitive careers out there, and the comedian who's coming up after you does not want you to be funnier than them, right? And so
depending on how good are the people that you're hanging around with.
Right. I did a show. We used to put together on this huge charity event at Christmas called the Hack and Slash Christmas Special. Mm-hmm. And one year we brought in a big name comedian, and it was the worst mistake we ever made, because he was a big stand-up guy, and he upset the entire cast. Was just telling them they didn't know what they were doing, they didn't have chops. And our show was great. It was a great show. Mm-hmm. But it didn't fit what he wanted.
It didn't live up to whatever his preconceived notion of it, or whatever his standards are.
Right. Yeah, he kept downing people for not having the chops to be as funny as him. And he was funny, but I didn't think he was any funnier than anybody else who was there, because we had some really, really good talent there.
Okay, so tell me who it is without telling me who it is.
Oh, I would never say his name, Kyle Cease, ever. I would never say his name on radio or podcast, Kyle Cease, because I mean that guy he was just really hard to work with.
I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. I don't think I can figure it out.
Yeah, I can't. I couldn't tell you who Kyle Cease is at all. I mean, that comedian.
But so, have you ever tried stand up?
I have not tried stand up, and I applaud him for going as far as he did, and I applaud anybody who does stand up, because it is you alone with a microphone. And you are the only one responsible for whether you fail or succeed. You don't have a partner up there with you. It's a tough job, and so I applaud him for that. But when you come back to a team, you need to be able to work in a team.
Right. Man, that's another facet in me, is like, I'm such a huge stand-up comedy nerd, as well as somebody who's been doing stand-up comedy for a couple of years now. So when you talk about the comedy and the chops that come along with it, and the vulnerability inside of, like, I'm going to stand here and say things that I think are important enough for you to listen to. And I mean, that I guess that comes back to like going to the keynote speeches that you do. You are like, I've got this confidence that's telling me that I've got to tell you a thing that you've got to know, and you can't say anything but listen. You got to sit here.
The thing is, you got to knock them down quick. I'm fortunate because my speeches are based in empowering themselves to do more. So I'm giving them information that they want, like big time, but I'm delivering it like I used to deliver my comedy show, right? I actually use whips and nunchucks in my corporate speeches, right? And at one point, I end my main corporate speech with bringing a person from the audience and in under 5 minutes teaching them to crack a whip and hit targets out of my hand.
Okay.
So I'm doing stuff that they've never seen before. I don't use any PowerPoint or any of that crap. But when I step on the stage, I have to own them right away. So I step on stage and I make a joke about, wearing tights and living in the woods. But, I worked at Renaissance festivals. For you guys who don't know what Renaissance festivals are, that basically means I was wearing tights and living in the woods.
Like the PowerPoint presentation of like your keynote speeches or not yours, but I'm saying anyone's like who's a motivational speaker. That's too basic. That's too hack. That's too like, I know you like the word hack. Hack means good things for you, but
hack that mindset. Yeah.
but
I actually played the character of Hack and Slash.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Yeah, all this wordplay comes back full circle.
Right. Well, I'll tell you something interesting about the PowerPoint thing, though, is like, they've proven scientifically that when you turn a PowerPoint presentation on, it actually shuts down the part of the brain for content retention. So by turning it on, you're splitting their focus, and they're not getting the information that's on the screen.
There's a very big amount of like any PowerPoint situation that I've ever been presented with is like the person is just reading a thing and looking and showing you the thing that they're reading, and it's boring as hell. Like,
right.
That's pretty.
Now,
like,
I've the only time I've ever seen PowerPoint used effectively is when the person on stage doesn't actually look at it, but the jokes that he's performing are happening on the screen behind him. Like he'll take his speech and turn it into a really boring part of the speech, and something will pop up and say, "Isn't this part of the speech boring?" On the screen behind him, and it becomes a three-dimensional show at that point, because now it's no longer just looking at a guy on stage. Now it's looking at the guy and the thing behind him. So it becomes very interesting. But the second you try to give them content that they're supposed to retain and talk it at the same time, you've lost all ability to have them learn anything.
That's a real good life hack, a good go behind. I know we're talking about hacks, but I mean that's kind of a hack. Like it reminds me kind of remember in Wayne's World when he was like interviewing the sponsor guy, and he was like holding the cards that were like this man, whatever he was saying, this guy's a dictator or whatever, and it was like it's this guy, I have proof or whatever it was. It was just saying stuff about the guy.
Right. It's like the old fashioned "I'm with stupid" shirt.
Right. Exactly. Right. But the guy's not seeing the "I'm with stupid" sign because it's too far ahead, and only the people witnessing it are seeing it. It's cool, man. It's cool. So you did also inside. You just did the theater fight choreography.
I did theater fight choreography. I did some film choreography. I'm mainly, when I work with film stuff, though, I'm usually a technical behind the scenes guy. Mm-hmm. I do. I'm an expert in sword play, whips, nunchucks, gun spinning. I've taken classes in Zulu stick fighting and small sword and rip your dagger, but I would say choreography wise, the majority of my work has been done doing live stunt shows, pirate stunt shows, and things of that nature. And the Hack and Slash comedy show that went, like I said, all over the world, and that had whips and swords and crazy sword fights, and rolls over the back and jumps off of the top decks. And I actually built collapsing towers where we blew up bombs and the entire tower collapses with a guy riding it down. And so zip lines, all that stuff. I did that for years and years and years.
A very good friend of mine is a blacksmith, and he makes the swords that the sword swallowers use. Like so they don't have a blade on it, so it doesn't like slice your insides out.
Well, I have lots of friends who are actual sword swallowers. And in fact, one night we were out to dinner, and we're sitting with a whole group of people. We said, "All right, who here eats fire?" and 11 of them raised their hand. I said, "Who here swallows swords?" And 6 of them raised their hand. And he was like, "I know all the weirdest people, man. It's the coolest thing ever."
Yeah, freak show people are the coolest, man.
They are the coolest.
I love freak show people like that. My friend who is a blacksmith, he also was the great Nippolini, and he has like world records, Guinness World Records for pulling anvils with his nipple rings.
Oh.
What and like pulling trucks and stuff. Cool ass dude. He's one of my favorite people.
Yeah. I had a very good friend named Johnny Fox. He was the king of swords, and he was very he's one of the most famous sword swallowers that ever lived, and he lived in New York, and he had a place up there called the Freakatorium. It was all this old sideshow memorabilia as a museum. He passed away a couple of years ago with cancer, but yeah, he used to do crazy stuff, and always had the craziest friends show up and do stuff with him in shows. It was great.
I know you told me that you're from this area. Well, you're from Delaware originally, but
yeah.
Now, where are you nowadays?
I'm in Akron, Ohio, because my third wife, that's right, they call me Triple X because I have 3 of them. My third wife and I got divorced, and she moved to Ohio with my son, and there's no way in hell I'm being away from my boy.
Right.
So I moved to Ohio, and I live within 2 miles of his house, which doesn't make her happy.
How old's your son?
Care.
How old's your boy?
He's 17 now.
Wow, cool.
And he's I'm 6'1", and he's 3 inches taller than me.
Wow, cool, man.
So yeah, it's like he's lording that over me right now. He rests his arm on my head and stuff. I'm not a small guy, but he makes me feel it.
I mean, I don't know how to ask this, but what does it feel like to be like a role model for this kid? Especially the fact that that you're somebody who's a motivator. That's like part of who you are and what you do. As part as like you gotta take off that like job hat and put on that my role hat as your dad. What is the relationship like in that?
Well, it's I'm glad you asked that question, because first of all, think about him. His dad is an action hero, right? His dad does whips and nunchucks and swords and all that stuff, right? And so I started teaching him that stuff when he was a little kid. And so he cracks whips, he does sword fights, he does nunchucks, he does all the stuff that I do. But and he's done it his whole life, and it's just fun, right?
Right.
And but also during the process of him coming up, all the information that I have from motivation and achievement, I've instilled in him. So as I'm talking to him about stuff, about how conflict resolution, especially like 2 of your friends end up having an argument, and I actually was in my room one day. I was working on something in my office, and I heard 2 of his friends out here arguing, and I heard him talk them down from the argument using things that I taught him. So I feel like I've done well. The key is
teachable moments in that.
Right.
You're
See,
right.
my dad was a plumber in Delaware, and his whole big thing was be a tough guy, be tough, right? And he used to say, that 1 shit wipes out 1,000 attaboys. And I was like, but the problem was he never gave any attaboys. He always gave shits. So the shits didn't matter, right? Well, am I allowed to cuss on your show?
Yeah, absolutely. What is shit though? What does that mean?
Well, so if you mess up, he's gonna knock you down for it. He's gonna beat you up about it. He's gonna give you crap, right? He's gonna treat you like you're garbage, basically. And so for my son, he. Instead of the attaboys are the positive reinforcement.
I know attaboys. I know.
Right. So I'm giving.
That's my world, man. I live in a constant state of validate me and tell me that I'm handsome. Tell me that I'm funny. Tell me that I'm smart. I live in that like attaboy all the time to me.
Right. But the thing is, somebody has to give it to you, right? And the person who's not giving you the attaboys is not giving you positive reinforcement. So I lean heavily into praise and positive reinforcement, so that when I actually have something negative to say to him,
there's impact.
It has much more effect.
Right.
At this point, he does something wrong. I just go, "Excuse me," and he goes, "Oh shit, I screwed up." Right.
So that's the 1 shit. The 1
that's
shit.
The 1 shit. 1 shit wipes out 1,000 attaboys. So he hears that one moment of "excuse me," and he knows that he messed up. But he's
Okay.
also confident in the fact that those 1,000 attaboys says he's secure and confident. So he knows he's in a good place still.
So, John, what is now? I was talking about that, like that ego hole, that validation that we seek, that reciprocal, like not reciprocal, the rhetorical conversation that we have with audiences, that where it's like we're speaking and you're listening, and we have things that are interesting enough for you to hear. I'm somebody who is on a public platform who's wearing tights in front of strangers, and what damage caused that hole for your ego to be able to fill it up with applause and validation?
Wow, that is a huge question, and I've never had anybody ask a question like that before. I'm so glad you did. So, my father was an abuser. He was a tough guy, and
I had a feeling it was going to go there.
they had 7 kids, and of the 7, he hated one, and I was the one. And I got kicked out of my house on Christmas Eve, and when I was 16, and like all kinds of crazy things happened in my life, and way that manifested, I became a huge introvert, and I was shut down emotionally and socially, and by the time I got out of high school and out of that area, Renaissance festivals saved me, because what happened was I liked going there because I was getting all kinds of positive reinforcement while I was there. Mm-hmm. And then the next thing that happened was I started booking myself as an entertainer because I was getting all that positive reinforcement. And as that positive reinforcement grew, I started finding out the things I was saying was funny. So I was getting positive reinforcement about that. Yeah. And that raised into building a show, which went on to carry the rest. But there was that start, that stunted growth in the beginning that needed me to go on stage. But I will tell you something else. You can grow past that. And it was one of the greatest compliments I ever got from another stage performer was he says, John, he says, I watched your show today. He says, and your partner comes on stage, before you to warm up the act, and he comes on stage, and for 20 minutes he tries to get them to like him. Mm-hmm. He says, you walk on stage and they love you. He says, and I don't think it's because of the fact that he warmed them up. I think it's because of the fact that you're doing something different. What is it you're doing? I said, I walked on stage and I loved them first, rather than expecting them to not like me. And that's the key. You got to go on stage and know you're bringing something good. You have to have the confidence in what you're doing. Yeah, you walk on stage confidently, and absolutely. Hey, not only am I confident about what I do, but it's something good for you. And I'm bringing something good to you. You're going to win every time. And that's why when I go into corporate speeches, I'm so different from every other corporate speaker they've ever seen. They see me walk the stage in my 3-piece suit and my tie and my shaven head and my little horn-rimmed glasses. And I walk on stage and they think, oh, okay, we're going to in for a boring accountant speech, right? And next thing you know, I have a whip out and I'm cracking whips on stage and I'm doing crazy things on stage. And it's so unique and so different. It brings something different. But when I walked on stage, I had to realize, I had to be confident that they were going to like me. But it was hard at first to go from being a comedian sword fighter to being a corporate speaker, because I had to shift the mindset of how are they going to take me seriously. And what I discovered was I just have to lean into what I'm good at. Mm-hmm. And go for it.
Well, I think the confidence is a part of, and I say this to younger people who ask me advice on anything. I always say, do it because you knew you had to do it. Do it like you belong there. Mm-hmm. You absolutely are there for the purpose to do the thing you're there to do, and don't let somebody make you feel because they've judged you in that second that you're not worthy of being there and doing the thing that you advertise yourself as coming there to do.
Yeah, if you're focused on what they're gonna think of you, then you're living their life and not your own. You need to go out there and live you fully. So, if you want them to love you for you, then you have to be you fully.
Right. Yeah, that's where likability comes from. Likability comes from not being a phony. If you're not sincere, you probably don't have likability. That's
right. Well, that's sometimes true, but because I've known some sincere assholes too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's a list
you are sincerely an asshole.
Yeah, of course. There's a circumstance for everything that's outside of the normal.
But I talk to people all the time about, especially people who are like, they see me with my 3 ex-wives, right? They're like, how did you find one? I say, well, the way I found one was interesting. I was myself, and did lived me fully, and did the things I wanted to do, and talked to people that were at the same place doing the same kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
How I lost my wives was allowing them to change me from being me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if someone's trying to change you, they don't love you; they love what they want you to be,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, I lost 3 wives because they wanted me to be something different than what they were attracted to in the first place.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've honestly been kind of dealing with that forever, because I think the main idea is like, oh, this is something different than everybody else. Let me get my hands on it, and then once I have my hands on it, I'm going to make it kind of more like what I want, and not the being that they already are. I'm gonna pick and choose what I like and don't like, and manipulate in a way. And I don't want to say that the manipulation is done in an evil way. For sure, I think manipulation comes from a place of learned behavior, and sometimes comes from a place of just sort of trying to just survive. It comes from a survivalist place.
Right. It comes from their past experience too,
Right.
because like their father might be a certain way, and they expect their husband to be the same way as their father.
Right.
And I've had that on a couple of them, right?
Well, you
and
got to
then I
stop
suddenly-
marrying them, John.
What I say?
You got to stop marrying
Oh,
them.
dude, yeah, I learned things the hard way. I put up a picture on Facebook a while back, and it was like an arrow here showing the rapier had stuck me there scar, a num-chuck scar here, a broadsword scar here, and I had like all the marks of all the things that hit me in the face. And a fight director friend of mine said, "You should stop parrying with your face."
The lessons you learn are never learned the easy way.
Right. You do. I did 4,000 of my shows, but I guarantee you, I did another 3 or 4,000 of shows that weren't mine.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm probably rounding closer to 10,000 shows that I've done that are, sword fights and crazy things. And
yeah, dude, we're of the same brand, you and I. Being the pro wrestler, the showman, the lessons learned the hard way. You take bumps the wrong way, and you learn, so that I mean, I also can't count how many shows I've ever done, but I know it's just up there. I mean, I was doing it since, I don't want to say was doing it, because I'm still doing it, but I'm saying I started doing it in like 98. So if I'm still doing it all this time later, I for sure cannot count how long I've been doing it. I can't count how many shows. I went through.
The only reason I know it was how many it was is because we did tally.
Oh yeah, and also you were probably getting paid for them.
Well, we were getting paid for it, but I was literally. We have a logbook for the Hack and Slash show where we would tally the shows, because we wanted to hit milestones, because for marketing purposes, saying, "Hey guys, come to the next show. It's our 1,000th show."
Right.
Huge marketing, and then you have the 1,000th show T-shirt that you sell, and
right.
So it's all marketing.
It's gimmicks, bro. It's gimmicks.
Right.
In wrestling, we would call the T-shirts you sell. Those are your gimmicks that you're selling gimmicks. So I for sure get it, but with wrestling, there's tons of times when you make towns and you're not getting paid, and you're basically doing it because you love it and for no other reason.
Right.
It's kind of like practice to get better, and it's definitely the addiction to the validation. It's addiction to the claps and the applause. And
I know a lot of guys who are professional jousters, and I mean on horseback, full armor, getting hit by poles and knocked to the ground. Right. Some of them have been knocked unconscious multiple times, severe injuries. They make no money. Most of them, right? The company makes money, but jousters themselves usually don't make that much money. And they all do it because at the end of the show, They are the knight in shining armor riding down the field talking to the pretty girls
Right.
who all have a fantasy about being with the knights in shining armor, right? So there's an ego element in most anything we do in life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a matter of the word ego to me is an interesting word because ego in the original language of Hindi, it just means self-awareness. But you can be balanced in one way or another. You can go into the big ego and think you're the greatest thing since sliced bread, or you can have the ego diminish from you and be undervalued and beat yourself up. So it's a matter of it's a matter of keeping the ego balanced.
Oh, dude, it's a constant balance, and there's no absolute. I've got it nailed. I'm all the way set on how good my ego is. It's a constant work. The work never ends. Right. And you know what, dude? Honestly, John, I've said this a million times on the podcast, and I'm going to say it to you. And you can use this. You can apply it. You can say it in your speeches. If you give me credit, cool. If you don't, whatevs. But I always say, in stores, the bookstores, there's a section. It's a multi-billion-dollar section of self-help books. Mm-hmm. You go there. Brian Regan just did on his new special. It's a side note. He was like, I went to the bookstore and I asked the lady to help me find the self-help section. And she went, why don't you try to find that yourself? Oh, that's so good. But I was saying this is a multi-billion-dollar industry, the self-help. But there's no money made in the self-fix section because that doesn't exist. You have to continue to do the work. There is no magic wand. There is no cure to depression. There's no cure to sadness. There's no cure to having an unhealthy ego. That's all work that you got to continue to do. The prescription is self-reflection.
Right. Life is motion, and if you're not moving, then you're not achieving anything anyway. It's like when you look at a river going down a mountainside, that river, when it's moving, it's got air and oxygen and life. When you pick that same water and you put it in a puddle and let it get stagnant, it becomes poisonous and bugs lay their eggs in it, right? So your motion is where life is. So if you want to achieve anything, when I talk about, my life, I've been a stuntman, a fight director, an artistic director, a keynote speaker. I've been a landscape designer. What else did I do? What else am I doing? And what else am I going to do? That's the way my life works. Mm-hmm. There is no limitations to what I can achieve and what I can't achieve. It's a matter of me saying, I'm not stopping. I look at it this way. Our life is a book that we're writing, and we can write whether it's a comedy, a tragedy, or an adventure story, and we never have to write a conclusion until we decide to write a conclusion.
Right. Well, it's like, it's funny because people... I cringe when I hear people say that something ruined their life, and I'm like, your life isn't over yet. It's not. You can't ruin it. You got so much more life.
I always cringe when they say they were the love of my life. I'm like, no, they weren't. They were the love of that part of your life, but your life is still going, right?
Another thing I say all the time, and once again, apply it and use it if you want. If you want to do it in your speeches, cool, whatevs. I don't mind if you credit me or not. But I always talk about the birth to death. Let's say ideally 100 years. Mm-hmm. So your childhood sucked. Your parents abused you, and you carry that anger. When it was this much of that, it was this tiny portion of the 0 to 100 years. It was just 10 years of that. How many other 10 years have you lived since then? I know years is a weird word, but for sure, how many other 10 years have you had?
Right.
But, and then if you're in a relationship that's 2 years and it was the best and it was great for most of it, and then it ended terribly. It's like, but it was only 2 years out of the 100 years. Like that's only it's a little tiny portion. It's be life defining. And then that's the other part I say about, like, careful what you really identify with and what you're gonna like bite into and own that as who you are and what you continue to be, because you can continue to be whatever you want. You don't have to be
Well, and it's the same thing about grief as well. When someone passes away, right? And I know I have a friend of mine right now who her mother passed away a couple of years ago, and she still pines for her mother every day, right?
Hmm.
And I said to her, I said, if this is your mom's life, the part that you're focused on is this little bit at the end. All the rest of this was the part you loved her for. Why don't you, instead of focusing on the stuff that you didn't like, focus on the good stuff. Think about the good things, right? And then, she would want you to remember her this way, not this way.
Right. Yeah. It's
Your
also
mom.
like the people who love you like that wouldn't want you to mourn over them for that
Right.
long.
And they want you to be happy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And mourning, if there is another side and they're
Mm-hmm.
looking over, they don't want you to be mourning and have a horrible time here.
Mm-hmm.
They want you to have a good time.
Well,
Right?
like it's weird. It's my grandmother's dog. We took my grandmother's dog after my grandmother passed away, and he lived with us for the rest of his life. And I got really close to them. And one day, I came home and I found him dead.
Oh,
Like I found him like he had shit all over the place. He had puked all over the place, and his body was laying there. And I couldn't think about Buddy and not think about that moment. And I'm like, I had so much time with him where I just loved him so much. And it was like, I gotta, like, that was what we signed up for, I guess. We signed up for taking care of them at the end of their life.
right.
But I had a lot of times where I like couldn't think of him. And then finally I got to the point where I'm like, man, what a fun time I had with him. Like he was such a fun little guy and we always played. So I get that. Like you focus the energy on the last moments.
Right.
When there's so much more of lessons that you can learn that you breeze right over them because you're too focused on what moments you can't get back. I always say this, and once again, take this if you want. We waste too many right nows on right nows we'll never get back.
Right. And right now is the only moment you have because it's the only moment you can do anything. I mean, you can't go to the store next Thursday right now. You can't go to the store last Thursday right now. There's only one moment that you actually friggin' live, and it's this one. So you have to make this one a good one. It's interesting you talk about your dog. I had a 110-pound Rottweiler named Odin. He was the greatest dog ever. I got him when he was 2 weeks old, and I literally bottle fed him because he was so young and carried him in my pocket. Eventually he was this gigantic dog, and he lived to 12, which is very old for a big dog like that.
Yeah, big dogs.
And he ended up getting bone cancer, and it was a horrible death. But I don't remember the death part. I remember the the really funny stories that came out of having a goofy Rottweiler.
The joy, the joy that
I would have another one right now, but I travel too much. With
Right.
my job. The year before COVID, I did over 200 days of travel.
Dude, you know what I was thinking of when you said something about when you were talking about the love of your life, and you were talking about the moments where you've got to change and you got to do. I went right back to you talking about the fact that you're now trying to be on a bunch of podcasts. You're trying to be because what you did do isn't a thing you can do, so you had to adapt. So that then cyclical comes right back around. We are
Right.
adapting. We are a constant. That's why the show is called Evolving. That's what.
Right. You talk about those podcasts. I in the past 2 months, I've done 22 of them, and I have 19 in queue right now. Right. And I'm stacking them and keep going because
Yeah.
if I can't go speak, then my job really is to get to be out there and be known. Right. So I'm doing as many as I possibly can. The other thing is that, while COVID's going on, I'm writing my book. I'm doing online courses that are going to be coming out next year. So when all this crap happened, I could have easily said, "Well, God, I'm done. I'm over. My career's over." No. This is just another opportunity, and I kept the motion going. I upped my video game. I got a green screen, right? Right, and lighting and all this stuff.
Oh, you're just knocking pretty hard on that brick.
Yeah, pretty good, right? So that's because I have knuckles of steel, buddy. Knuckles of steel, right. But yeah, it's like I got the green screen. I got the lighting. I did all the stuff because it was like, okay, I'm going to stay in motion.
Yeah,
Now I'm marketing and Things are great right now. When I come out of this, because I was staying in motion, I'm going to come out of it with more live speeches and virtual speeches. I'll be able to do those now because I wasn't doing them before. And I'll have my books done. I'll come out of it with so many more products, and I'll make so much more money because of COVID than I ever did before when I was traveling 200 days a year.
Well, it's the thing that I always quote this. I've talked about it on this podcast a billion times. I actually had this guy as a guest on back in like 2003. A friend of mine who's a wrestler, he wrestled under the name Messiah. And in 2003, in August, these men, the beginning of August 4th, these men broke into his house and they took hedge clippers and they cut his thumb off.
No,
they cut his thumb off and he fought them off and they left. But they took his thumb with them. But then he came back to wrestling 3 weeks later, and he said, "I was standing in the locker room, and he had there was a camera crew with him, and he was right near me, and he held the hand up with his thumb missing. He said, 'You see this? This is an obstacle. This is an obstacle. This is just an obstacle.'" And he wrestled that night, and he continued to wrestle. And I don't think he wrestles anymore, but I mean, like, what an inspiration to me,
right.
for him to be like, yeah, I'm adapting. I'm not going to see this obstacle as something that's stopping me. So then I took that, and on the same day that he got attacked and his thumb got cut off, August 4th, but in 2011, August 4th, I had a grand mal seizure that almost ended my life. And I had to have brain surgery, and I had to come, and I was like, I'm coming back to wrestling, and this stuff is an obstacle. And I took that right from Messiah, and I wanted to have him on the podcast so that I could tell him on the record, because I know this stuff's outliving us. When I'm gone, he can go back and listen to that and be like, wow, Corey told me how much I inspired him and how much I meant to him. If I go before him, or if he goes before me, I'll be able to have on the record that the moment where I got to tell him, man, like you really spoke to me and got me through something huge. I mean,
that's great. That's great.
I took that mindset, and when they were like, yeah, well, you're gonna have to stay in this hospital for a month after, for 30 days after this surgery. Are you prepared for that? And I was like, no. What? Why? And they were like, well, you might have to learn to read and write and walk and talk all over again. And I automatically said, I'll be home in a week. And I was home in 3 days.
My story is a little different. When I was 22, I was moving boxes of clay for a friend of mine, and my spine split in two, and I was paralyzed.
Wow.
And they took me into the hospital, and while I was in the hospital, I read a book called The Tao of Jeet Kune Do by Bruce Lee. And I learned from that book mental flexibility. So that obstacles thing that you're talking about, it's the same thing. It's just something in the path to get where I want to go. It took me a year and a half, and the first 30 days was just being able to get my upper torso to lift off the bed. And then the first year was just to get back to the ability to be able to walk like a normal person. And in a year and 6 months, I jumped off a 3-story tower into a fall pad. So, I mean, your mind is the key. Your mind, the thing is, when something comes up that seems contrary to what you're trying to achieve in life, you can look at it as an obstacle, and you can believe it's an obstacle and the thing that's going to stop you. Or you can say, look at this as like, oh, this is something that I need to address to get to my goal. And that's how you have to look at life and anything that comes up. It's just something you have to address to get to your goal, because you're a person who gets to their goals.
I had this bit that I was doing before COVID. I was doing on stage where I would say, everybody does everything so that they can say that they did it. Like the reason you guys are here today is so that later on you can be like, oh, last night I went and saw comedy. That's everybody does something so that they can say that they did it. And I was like, well, I said, it was Thanksgiving, and my mom went out Black Friday shopping at midnight. And I snuck back in her house and I did all her dishes for no reason at all. No, not looking for any thank yous or anything. You know why I did it? So that I could come here tonight and tell you how much of a good guy I am.
Yeah.
It's like, but it's all that same thing. Like, man, like for you to have been paralyzed and been, man, how did that happen with the clay? I mean, it was just too heavy.
At that point, I was already starting to do stunt work. I was already buff. I was lifting weights. I was going for my black belt in karate, and I was like really a fit guy. And the guy said, "Hey, come help me unload my van." And I said, "Sure, no problem." Because I just looked at it as another workout, another chance to build up my muscle.
Mm-hmm.
So I went out there, and he was a professional potter. He made pottery, and
Mm-hmm.
these are 80-pound boxes of clay. Mm-hmm. And so I got up in his van, I picked up the first one, and I twisted, and my spine literally went like this. And they took me to the hospital, and the doctor said, "John, you have a condition called spina bifida occulta, which basically means 3 of my vertebrae never formed properly at birth. And when I twisted with the extra weight that day, I literally unscrewed my back, and it literally went like fell off and pinched off the spinal column."
Wow.
And that's what left me paralyzed. And
they wanted spina bifida. Isn't that what the sister had in Pet Sematary when they locked her in the basement?
Yeah, I don't remember that movie, so I don't remember it.
It haunts me. It haunts me.
Spina bifida is a very severe disease.
Yeah.
And the worst case is the spine actually grows outside of the body.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah,
and
I think that was what was.
What I have is spina bifida occulta, but it's basically when vertebrae form, they come around and they form a donut, and then there's these 2 flanges that kind of marry and fuse. And 3 of my vertebrae, when they came around and fused, instead of fusing like this, they kind of missed.
When that was in utero.
Yeah. So we had no idea. We had no idea until the accident. Mm-hmm. We had no idea that had happened.
That's very similar to me, John. Like honestly, that grand mal seizure that I had was something in utero. It was my veins in my brain weren't formed correctly.
Well, that explains a lot. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. I didn't reread to learn to read or anything. I didn't learn yet. Still, I don't know how to read.
I'm sorry. You can lead me to water, but you cannot stop me from drinking.
Oh yeah. Yeah, man. I think it's a matter of like probably at the time was when I was weight training the hardest I had ever weight trained at that point, where a lot of days leading up to that I was puking from the weight training that I was doing, and that might have just triggered something that opened that thing up so it bled, that caused that seizure. But once again, it was so like such a like you. The same thing with just twisted a little bit when you were carrying that clay, where it's just
one little thing,
one tiny little thing.
Yep, it's just that extra weight. And the funny thing was, at that point, I mean, I had already done high falls. I'd already done, I was doing sparring and competition, and so
you were fighting at 233.
Yeah. I'm a big guy in general.
Yeah. You said you're 6'1", right?
I'm 6'1", and if you look. My shoulders are broad. I'm a very broad guy, and my waist is narrow, so all of my weight was in my upper muscle.
Yeah,
my legs.
The upper body is the most important thing.
Right. The core of it all. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
Right. Now,
it's upper body business, brother.
As a speaker, now. I don't get nearly the exercise I used to get, and I'm 56 years old. I'm not expecting to do what I did at 22, but I have a gig coming up in the fall that I started training for yesterday. That is going to be the whole theme of the event is reaching the peak, and I'm going to rappel into the show.
John, let me offer myself as a resource to you in any way. I just want to make sure I say that on the record.
Okay.
If ever there's a chance that you could need some help or want to talk to somebody or think that I'd be an interesting resource for you, or I can be a good resource for you in any way, absolutely talk to me. I'm always here. I'm glad we're friends now. I'm glad this is the part where I'm saying the stuff that's on the record, because for sure this stuff is outliving us.
Well, oh, sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
The point of me wanting to do this show and wanting, and at this point having so many episodes is like, I treasured the opportunity to make new friends, and I'm super glad that I made one in you. And if I can be some sort of puzzle piece for you in some way, I'd absolutely be happy to do that and be there.
I'll put it in the resources file. And I don't mean the one next to the desk. I mean the real one.
The one next to the desk where things are crumpled up and tossed.
Yeah, not that one. This one. I'm filing it away. No, it's actually. I will keep the information. Don't you worry.
Do you have, at this point, I'll just flip it around. I don't really do this very much. I do it sometimes though, but I'll flip it around and ask you if there's anything you want to ask me. Absolutely, feel free to do so.
So what got you into the idea of doing a podcast in the first place?
Oh man, I was such a fan of so many shows. Like I love podcasts. I'm such a big comedy nerd, and I'm such a big podcasting comedy nerd. Like so, the amount of podcasts that I listened to, I was like, I was also doing a wrestling podcast, which I'm still doing. We're actually celebrating our 6-year anniversary next week for for Wrestle Rock, WrestleRock.com, RASSLE rock.com.
There you go. Nice, nice plug.
But we were doing it. And it was like each show was an hour, and we're only talking about wrestling. And I felt like at the end of every show, I'd always had so many other things that I wanted to say and more ways that I wanted people to kind of get to know me a little bit more. But it felt so surface. It felt very surface and not as deep as I wanted it to be. And I also felt like I wanted to be able to create some kind of show that if I was a fan of the show, I'd want to listen to it.
Right.
I'd want to create a content in where the people who like the kind of stuff I like will also like this.
Right,
so
right. That's the key right there. It's like one of the things that's interesting about podcasts because I've been on a lot of them now, right? And there are the ones that they send you a list of questions that they're going to ask you, and they suck because you get on there, you've seen all the questions, so you've kind of you've mentally formulated, right? But even when they ask them on the show, they sound like they're reading their list, right? And the ones that the best podcasts are always the ones that are conversational. That are just like, let's just go and see where it goes and what happens. And I think those are the podcasts that best promote you. It best promotes the guest because the thing that people are looking for is authenticity. They're looking for reality. They're not looking for somebody to say how great they are. They're looking for someone who's fully being themselves and bringing good information. And so.
I hope that it's very much educational. I really hope that's the point of me wanting to have people on the show is like I want to be able to learn from people. Like I'm not only calling it Evolving with Corey Castle because I'm Corey Castle and I host the show, but it's like you can hear me learn things and become a different person through the journey of the episodes. If like you go from episode 1 all the way to 233 and you haven't seen any change or evolving in me, maybe I'm hosting the wrong show.
or maybe you're on the treadmill of evolution.
right, exactly.
It's great that you're doing that. So in the process of actually doing all these podcasts, what is your number one thing you've learned?
Oh man, there's too many things. I think mostly it's like don't get too personal on whether. I think the main thing is like tons of people are going to like shoot you down or not want to do it or reschedule or whatever. So the main thing I had to learn because dude, I'm so sensitive. I'm a very, very, very sensitive person. So if somebody blows me off or something, I take it very, very personally. Or if somebody doesn't respond to me, I take it very, very personally, and it hurts my butt. It hurts my butt real hard. I don't want that.
You're doing it wrong. Sorry. So is that out loud?
What am I doing wrong? saying
I
butt.
don't know, but if your butt's hurting, you're doing it wrong.
So,
Sorry, dude.
so it's just about trying to take things a little less personally, but actually make sure that you have that sincerity in there in your message, so that it's personal enough
Right.
to connect to anybody who's listening. And that's what I sincerely hope to do. I hope to personally affect whoever's listening, because I know the currency in your effort and your time is more valuable than the currency in the zeros in the back of your bank statement.
Right. Time is the one thing you do have, because you
Right.
can't take your money with you, you can't take your house with you, you can't take your car with you, but your time will end as well, and it's the only thing that you will actively have, whether you're poor or rich or have a car.
Right.
You'll always have time.
I just had, dude. I honestly, I'm 37 years old.
Oh God, you're so old.
But
I'm 56. Thank you very much.
my aunt is in her 60s, and we've never really had really long, deep conversations. But
You should while you can.
She's been calling me, so we've been having these long, deep conversations, and we go back and forth, and it's really cool. And she lives in Florida, so she doesn't have a lot of people to connect with, and I said to her, because I know she has a lot of money, and she's very like stingy with her money. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, look, who cares about your money? You're not taking it with you. Because she was also talking about this being like the end of her life. And I was like, live it up. We don't want your money. Like, she's living for leaving it to us. And I'm like,
my mom was the same way.
Don't think that I want it at all. I would be more happy with nothing, knowing that you lived a joyful and healthy experience in the years that you've got left, versus like, oh wow, no, Terry's gone and I have her house.
I said those exact words to my mother, and one of the things I'm most grateful for is the last few years of my mom's life. She and I really connected on some very deep levels, and I'm not a religious person, but I'm a spiritual person, and I studied it all. I studied Buddhism and Hinduism and the Baha'i faith and Christianity and all of it, and the Quran, the whole bit. And my mom is devoutly Catholic. Well, was devoutly Catholic. She passed away now, but she had her master's degree in liturgy. Mm-hmm. But at the end of her life, we were able to talk openly about our beliefs, and we believed a lot more of the same things than I ever thought we did. And she was very much on the same page with me on a lot of things, and we really connected. When she got to the point where she was going to pass away, I told her flat out. I said, "You know what? You don't have to stay. We're good. You can. It's going to be okay, and you're going to go over, and you're going to have the experience on the other side. That's going to be the one that you want, and it's going to be what you've lived your life to get to. So don't worry about it," because her biggest thing was worrying about us and leaving something behind for us. And I kept saying, we don't want your money. We don't want anything. We don't want anything from you at all. We want you to live a good life while you're here. Mm-hmm. And you're going to live a great life when you go over, So it was really an interesting thing. But the thing is about your aunt is you got to make sure you have those conversations while they're still here, because you're not going to be able to talk to them again until you go over.
Well, what do you think happens when you die?
I am. Well, there's a couple things I believe. Because I've had past life regressions, I believe in past lives. I literally have I was never a believer in psychics, but I had 19 of them tell me about the same past life, which is one topic we're not going to get into which one it was. But they all told me about the same past life, and I was like, yeah, but they're psychics. I don't believe that crap. I don't believe in that. Mm-hmm. And so I went and I found a past life regression therapist, and she regressed me, and I remembered that same life. And so I believe that we come to this space to experience our separation from source and to learn our lesson, right? And when we go on the other side, it's perfect. It's like a loving space. We come here to learn our lessons through our control of fear and our own fears. That's my belief, right? And when you look at Buddhism Buddha said the secret to enlightenment is the eradication of fear, right?
Mhm.
Jesus said, whatever you ask in God's name is granted. But God's name, according to Moses, was I am. So whatever you're putting after I am is what you're creating. Uh,
Right.
Gandhi says, be the change you want to see in the world. So you are the one creating your experience. So you literally are here creating. And what I think when you go to the other side, when you've learned everything you want to learn, there'll be another evolution on the other side that takes you
More
somewhere else.
lessons.
But I think that here, while you're
Uh,
here to feel your separation from source and to
Mhm.
learn lessons in the process.
Right.
Does it make sense?
That does. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think I'm subscribed to something pretty similar to that. I definitely think that when it comes to just what you were saying about the I am part,
Mm-hmm.
I do think that like if like I did have stuff done to my brain. Like I had brain scans. I had tons of stuff done where when they showed me like clips of like the electricity moving around in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
I automatically went, that's what God is. So
Say that again.
that's what God is.
Okay.
That electricity that's keeping my brain going is what God is. Not somebody up somewhere,
Right.
some other force outside, other source, I think God is the electricity, the energy that keeps our brains active, that keeps the wind blowing through the trees, that then puts the oxygen in our lungs, and we have the opportunity to make relationships with that and make relationships with making this place as close to the idea of what heaven is right
Heaven
now.
on earth.
Right.
Heaven on
Yeah.
earth, right.
So
Think about this. Think about what you just said. I am created in God's image. Well, you are in God's image. Everything you see is made of atoms. Even your hand that you're looking at, made of atoms. Well, those atoms, according to Einstein, are nothing but a pure energy event.
and
The only thing you,
it's made of eaves.
right. The only thing you are is your consciousness, what you
Right.
think.
Mm-hmm.
What I think, therefore I am, right? So, and think about that statement. I think, therefore God's name, therefore I am, right? Right. So, you're all you really are is your conscious essence, and the outer body is something that is made of energy and pure energy, and you are here to create your experience. It's kind of what I just said in a way, but we've experienced that separation from the vibration of something pure, And then Buddha said, when you realize how perfect everything is, you'll tilt your head back and laugh at the sky, because that's the way the world works. Everything is working the way it's supposed to work. And sometimes you go through hard things because those are the moments you're learning stuff. And it's a matter how you come through the hard things.
I always say, like, the stuff that comes easy to you isn't teaching you anything.
Right. And when everything comes easy to you, you won't be here anymore. You'll go to the next level. It's like Donkey Kong.
Evolve or die, adapt or die.
Right. Yeah. God is at top, throwing the barrels down at Mario, and Mario's jumping the barrels, and he gets there, he gets to the top, he goes to the next level, right? And so that's kind of the way it works.
Was Mario around before Donkey Kong? Because
I don't think so. I think that was his. I think that was his
spin-off.
premiere.
So Mario was a spin-off.
Yeah, spin-off of Donkey Kong.
We don't ever talk about. We don't. How come we ain't out here talking about how Mario is a spin-off?
I totally should. Yeah, Mario Brothers is totally, because he was already in Donkey Kong before Mario.
Oh man, but did they actually say Mario? Like, were they saying that's Mario, or just looked exactly like him?
I don't know whether they called him Mario in that, but he was definitely the same guy.
Yeah, it was the same guy.
It was the same guy.
Don't try to pull the wool over my eyes.
No way. It's a conspiracy thing. It's like who shot JR? Who was Mario? When was Mario? Yeah.
So, have you ever experienced any like psychedelic experiences?
I have. It's the craziest things I've done in my life. I've never done a drug in my life.
Oh, really?
And I'm one of the weird guys. I did Renaissance festivals. I had access to everything.
Right.
And I just never was something I wanted to get involved with. I drank for a short time. I don't drink now at all. But what I kind of get high on is I really get into high on metaphysics and meditation and I do a lot of that kind of work all the time, you know, and I just don't feel the need to alter what I'm already doing. So,
Dude,
yeah,
you're a fascinating cat, man. I wanna sit down and break bread, man. I
that'd
think
be
that
fun, wouldn't it?
well, yeah, totally. I would love to.
I'll come back to the East Coast and maybe we'll do that. We'll
Yeah,
sit down, have a
next
good time.
next time you come around, man, just call me or text me. You got my number.
Sounds
And
good. Sounds good, man.
once again, going back to if I can be some sort of resource for you, or if you just need conversation, if you just need a friend, if you just need judgment-free conversation or talking or advice or anything, that applies to you and as well anybody who's listening. If this is your first time checking out this show, know that that's an option. I'm not somebody who's hard to get a hold of. So please reach out to me if you feel like you don't have options. Please know that I'm one, and
Cool.
absolutely will put down everything else I'm doing just to give you my attention.
That's awesome, dude. That's awesome.
Because dude, the currency of effort is so valuable to me. The currency of intention is so valuable to me, and I value the amount of attention and effort and intention that you've given me here today. That's so awesome, man. I want to just, I think two more things,
Okay.
and then I'll send you home with a hot dog and a handshake. You're right off into the sunset. All right. So I call this segment on the show, I call it audio time travel. Okay. So let's say it's for the next minute or so, it's going to be 2041, and your 17-year-old son will have aged 10 years. He'll be 27 and be listening to this very audio because, you know, there maybe a whole lot of audio of dad doesn't exist. Where you know, let me also encourage you before I ask you to go into the audio time travel message. You should have your own podcast, but
I do.
oh, okay.
Interaction Hero
Okay.
podcast.
Well, I'm happy to be a guest on your show if you ever,
There you go.
if you ever want me to be. So in this audio time travel, this timestamp in what 2021 has been and the life lessons that your son can hear from you right now in this time of your life that will apply to him in 2041.
So what you're saying? What lessons have I
Mhm.
learned from 2021?
Mhm.
I would say that no matter how dark or dire anything is, you can grow from it. I have a very good friend who's a keynote speaker, and she actually bills herself as the happiness coach, and she says you're not going through something, you're growing through something. So I would say just remember that you stay in motion, stay present, and keep moving.
No, at this point, normally the way I wrap up every episode is I will say that I've hypothetically handed you this podcast. This is yours now. So this has been your pilot episode, the first episode of your new podcast, Evolving with John Davis. And in a very Jerry Springer's final thought type of way, you wrap it up in a pretty little bow and tell us what we can use to evolve to a better version of ourselves tomorrow as we are today. And then just to keep it silly at the end, you just do your best impression of Alf and say, "Hey, Willie."
I have no idea what Alf sounds like, so there you go.
Just take a stab at it.
So I'll do it. I'll do it as Yoda. Okay.
Okay. Yeah,
All
that's
right,
great.
That's better. Okay. So big wrap up. So we have gone through a whole bunch of crazy things today. We've talked about how to achieve more. We've talked about, our past and where our struggles have been and where our struggles have gone. And today we're showing you how you can take what we've done and we've learned and learn from our experiences and go forward into the next part of your life like an action hero, not a reaction zero. So step up, go out there and do it. And then you find John at corporateactionhero.com. Bam. And here you go. Ready? It's Hey Willie was the word. Mm-hmm. Hey Willie. Willie, hello, I say.
That was probably my favorite one so far. But dude, I say this thing all the time, and I think that's it. You totally just touched on it. But I always say, so many of us are so used to just being reactionary to life happening, and are just kind of observers in our existence instead of being deliberate creators in our everyday existence. So I see you as a deliberate creator, and I recognize it and I appreciate it very much.
Yeah. And namaste to you as well.
I very much appreciate, very much respect. I'm going to say, if you have anything you want to use this for, absolutely use it. You have my full permission to use whatever you want to use for this. Also, anybody listening to this or watching it on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button, comment below so that I know that you exist for real. Make sure you like and subscribe so that you get new episodes every single Monday at noon. And be fun, have safe, and keep evolving.
See ya.
Bye.